Welcome in, Loons fans, to another edition of the Matchday Preview. Jonathan Harrison here, joined once again by co-host Manny Lagos. Manny, how you doing today? We've got a lot to discuss. Got a special guest today. How you doing?
I mean, it's so hard because we still don't play until next Monday in this playoff game. And you have this break, and you remind yourself you're still in the playoffs. You're only one of 8 teams left, and you're now in the excitement mode of can we make a run? But my brain has just fell into the love of soccer again over the last 4 or 5 days. It's been I'm so excited about our guests because it's our guest is both global and national and has such an intuition about all levels of soccer, but we get to talk about it. I mean, my heart fell back in love with soccer when I saw Ireland, Scotland over the last couple of days. It reminded me of 2010 when we scored that goal against Algeria to get it past the next round, and just seeing all the bars go nuts. I had those chills against Ireland and Scotland. And then I think US had two of its best games in a long, long time, maybe decades long in terms of, I know they're friendlies, but fun to watch. So I'm excited for our guests to talk about all that and then dial it down to MLS and then dial even further down to MNUFC's chances against San Diego.
Yeah, speaking of those, the Ireland-Scotland results, as a radio guy myself, I went searching for the radio calls of some of those goals, and they are, as expected, awesome and fantastic, and worth your time to go search them out. As Manny hinted at, our special guest today, MLS analyst Andrew Wiebe, friend of the show, been on here before. Welcome back, Andrew, and looking forward to today. How are you after what we've experienced over the past couple days of soccer?
Oh, I am amazing. I'm looking at my bank account right now. I feel like I'm missing some money after all those kind words from Manny. Did I pay you to say that? Where did that come from?
I was. By the way, you were on the sideline of the Seattle game, so that's my brain must have been like had good vibes.
I know, man. I would have paid to have that experience. Let me tell you, and I'm very fortunate that somebody was paying me. I completely agree with you, just in terms of the last week or so. And I've been on the sort of the forefront of watching, witnessing, experiencing these MLS Cup playoffs from a lot of different angles. So I would swoop all of that in. But this is the time of year for me where, sort of that grind of the season dissipates and you get to a point where everything is clear. There is clarity in front of you. It is, the stakes are there, the emotion is there, the drama is there, and you just have to sort of sit back and experience it. And I mean, you can talk about UEFA all you want, man. And let's stick in our neck of the woods.
Oh yeah,
our backyard. CONCACAF went absolutely buck wild. I'm both delighted and relieved that the U.S. is not a part of World Cup qualifying in this region, and also absolutely just in awe of the continued just after dark aspect of CONCACAF qualifying. Congratulations to Haiti. The images of them on the field watching on a cell phone as Honduras blew it and Costa Rica couldn't get it done, and falling and crying and all these celebrations. I mean, it's a distillation of hopes and dreams.
That's got to be their first qualification, right?
Since 74. So since 74. So for this generation, for most of their population, for this generation it is. And remember, they didn't even play at home. They're playing these games elsewhere because of violence in their home country. So between them and Curacao and, Suriname couldn't quite get it done, but they go to Intercontinental Playoff. And I was watching Anibal Godoy, and we don't want to blow him up too much on this podcast because he's standing in the way of the conference finals for you guys. But watching him literally like peacock dance around the track in Panama. I mean, come on. This is what we love about the beautiful game, boys.
Yeah, it was awesome. Yeah, it was a good run. Curaçao's an amazing story. Obviously, the smallest population ever to qualify now, taking over. I think it was Iceland. So
150,000. Like, I mean, you might have more people in your neighborhood.
Now, technically, I think they're recruiting a lot of players from Netherlands.
Listen. Yeah, technically, but it's still a good story. The Dutch can't have every great player, right? That comes out of the diaspora.
I was more going to say I was going to give props to Iceland. I think they did theirs more people that were born in Iceland versus Curacao. I think only one player was born on the island.
Wow, taking them down a peg already.
Look at Manny trying to tear down Curacao here.
Sorry, guys.
In their moment of glory, in their moment of happiness, trying to tear him down. We've got so much to discuss. Starting off with the big news of the last week. MLS calendar change, officially official, Manny and Andrew. Andrew, I'll start with you. Get a national perspective, then we'll go to Manny, get the Minnesota United perspective on this. The calendar change is happening. We are switching to the European model. Come 2027, there's going to be a sprint season before we get into the full works of the new schedule. But your thoughts and analysis of what this means, how we've gone about it, and kind of what it sets up for the league.
I mean, I know that years and years of analysis and consideration has gone into this decision, and I think rightfully so, because there is so much at stake. And once you sort of pull the plug, so to speak, like the water's going down the drain, you can't stop it. So here we go. I think from a competitive standpoint, this is potentially transformative. And I say potentially because, as with everything else, like you push that first domino, you've got to have all the other dominoes set up to fall with it. But just in terms of soccer, which is what I tend to go to first and foremost, like what will bring the best soccer to our league? I think lining up transfer windows with Europe has an opportunity for Major League Soccer to, one, sell players in a more efficient way. And I think Tani Lachey is a great example of this, but also just as connected to that, buy and replace, because MLS can't and should not be a selling league only, right, guys? Like, listen, we're part of the market. You've got to sell. If a Champions League club, if Villarreal comes to the Loons and says, look, we're going to give you $8 million plus bonuses for Tani, you got to do it. But you can't just take that money and say, cool, we're all good. Like, you've got to go reinvest it. And you guys were in a rock and a hard place this summer with that transfer. And it truly did lower the ceiling of the club, though Eric Ramsey and this group are bashing at that ceiling right now, trying to get to the conference finals. I think it just gives teams a better opportunity to not only capitalize on the strategic wins and the player wins that they have, but more importantly, use that capital to go out and make their teams even better. Like, we need to be in a situation where that line is going up, and every single step we take is another one up the ladder, and that ladder just keeps rising higher and higher. And I think that will be the case in terms of player acquisition and team development and just having teams at their very, very best for the biggest moments of the season, which is what the playoffs should be. So I'm hugely encouraged by that development, but it will take teams and owners and GMs showing true ambition. And I think so many are doing that already, and they'll just supercharge that. A lower, less talked about part of this, that as a week-to-week watcher of Major League Soccer, I've been screaming for a long time, is just lining up better with international calendars. It is, to me, incomprehensible in a lot of ways to have 5 to 6 weeks of the year and often almost an entire month of the summer because of international tournaments then, where you're not playing with your best players. And there was a time in Major League Soccer where that might not have been as significant. You know, you might not have had hundreds of guys from across the globe going to be with their national teams in every confederation that there is, but that's the reality now. And when I watch games and I see that international absences list and I see a full schedule, or I see 7 games or 8 games, and we're missing the best players in our league for our games that should matter, that frustrates me. And so I have long been a proponent of just finding a way to avoid as many international breaks as possible. I just think that you have to do it. Fans deserve it. When they go to the stadium, they should see the best players. The players deserve it. The coaches deserve it. We all deserve it. We want to see the best soccer. So I'm really excited for those two things. And then just the playoffs. Listen, playoffs in May, playoffs in a time of year where we're not fighting the NFL and college football. A sprint season in that moment of, the first one we'll get is 2017, but that gives you a sign of what's to come, 14 games into the playoffs. I like that idea as well. And, a big part of me thinks that those breaks can one, help teams recharge, but also help new signings integrate, but hopefully give us, 14 weeks of the best possible games, the most high intensity games that we can get. And that's what I want. I want to watch an MLS week to week, because that's who I am. I'm a sicko. I'm not just going to drop in for the playoffs. I want the best possible soccer for as long as possible. And I think that this gives it to us. But you're hearing me say think and perhaps and probably, as always, there's work to be done. This is not the panacea. We're not solving all MLS's problems from a soccer perspective or a business perspective in one fell swoop. this is just one part of the overall equation, and I'm hugely encouraged by it. But I hear on my Twitter feed, I hear from people in northern markets like yours who are saying, hey, hold on, like, you know, it gets cold here. And I was cold on the sideline against Seattle. I'm not going to lie to you. I was pretty cold, but I might be soft. Like, you know, that's neither here nor there. But I'd be very curious to hear what your initial reactions were to this, because it's not just initial, right? It's many years of sort of mulling over what this possibility could mean.
Manny,
No,
where do you stand?
Yeah, go ahead, Jonathan. Give me your thoughts, Jonathan.
No, I understand a lot of the frustration and reservations from the fan standpoint, because as you said, Andrew, it does get cold here in the winter. That's not breaking news. So it's figuring out how to adjust to that. And obviously you're not going to have Minnesota or some of these other northern markets play in December and February. They'll go on the road for those games, which makes sense. But it's just playing some of those games in October and November, like we saw the past couple weeks in the playoffs, where you're in a little bit less than ideal weather. But hey, they do it in the NFL. I think we'll be fine to do it in Major League Soccer. It's just getting the product, as you said, now with the transfer windows lined up, will hopefully take that next step as well. And that's kind of what the whole impetus of this change is getting the product on the field better. So I'd like to see how that transforms and how that takes place over the next couple of years. Manny?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not gonna. I feel like Andrew just put a lot of points really well, and I'll go over in my head real quick again. Like, you start warm, you end warm. I really like that idea of just, you know, having playoffs in the spring. I agree 100%. I think getting away from the NFL and college football and Major League Baseball's playoffs, these outdoor iconic sports in the U.S. is really important. For me, in the spring, you just have the NBA, which I love basketball, by the way, but it's an indoor sport where I'm kind of clamoring to get out. And if it's not two teams I'm really into, and as much as a big fan as I am, I'm still clamoring to watch outdoor things. So I really like the idea of the playoffs being owned in the spring. I love the transfer window, obviously, you know, having worked in the club for so long, and I see how the value of that. I would just add that the summer also kind of bugged me, how we always have to figure out a World Cup year, a Copa America year, a Euro year, Gold Cup stuff. So I'm actually really excited on the macro league level to get rid of like having us to play in and around in a weird way when you have the biggest tournaments in the world going on, or the biggest tournaments in CONCACAF. I know 75% of the games will still stay the same. So it's really talking about how we build out in those 25%. I think for Minnesota fans, my brain goes right away to there won't be any games for the whole league in January. I'm pretty confident we will have no games in December or February unless they're at the very beginning of December, barely, or at the end of February. And that probably be our choice, because we want to maybe have a game and not be away too much based on how they do the league starting in February. So I have a big question about how they use Leagues Cup in this setting. I don't know, honestly, but
agreed. That'll
be really interesting because, you know, if they put it in one of the colder months, I think we just go on the road, which I think we'd be okay with in Minnesota. By the way, I don't think we are like we have to play in the Leagues Cup at home. But I think it comes down to execution. And again, I'm very confident in our club in terms of execution. I believe in our staff. I believe in whether it's a sporting side or our front office. We'll embrace the adversity and challenges and build out a model that I think could work. We talked about this awful bit. I think the execution has to come from MLS on this one. They really want to tell a playoff story in the spring. I think the teams in the league, we put good playoff drama there. So that story has to be told where we get more fans, we get more people watching, we get better TV deals. So hopefully the growth of the game will be advantageous, not just on the field, but hopefully the league can evolve their own sales model to sell this to more national media, national TV deals, and global kind of awareness. So, but I'm excited about it. At the end of the day, we're trying to get bigger and stronger within the global game. I think I'm going to go back to, I have in my notes a little bit about last night and the U.S. winning against Uruguay, but I don't think people realize how big MLS is getting as a league around the world in terms of respect too. And I think that's a big reason why this is happening.
Yeah.
Can I just make a suggestion here real quick? I'm thinking out loud. I mean, Leagues Cup in the winter, like, you know what, Cancun, Playa del Carmen, like, where are these Minnesotans going? I know you guys are sticking around. I know you're flying south.
Oh, there's like 5 flights a day to Playa. Yeah,
exactly. Let's just base the Loons in a Mexican city. We could just have Leagues Cup straight out of there. It could be perfect solution.
all-inclusive resort, and it includes MLS games at the same time.
I mean, now you're speaking the language. I mean, listen, we go down to the Caribbean and we've got a party. We've got a party.
Oh, that would be wild. Yeah, I admittedly I have been one that has needed convincing on this switch because of the weather considerations for a lot of the northern markets. But I think the thing that really does kind of pull me over to the side of being okay with this is the fact that international windows hopefully will no longer be played in, and we can have our key players around the club at all times during games where, as you guys have said, during the months of June, we don't have Dane St. Clair, the best goalkeeper in Major League Soccer. That obviously hurts the club at times. So having these guys that are playing for their international squads across the league available at all times is a big key for me for this one. And I like the switch if we can get away from playing during international windows. Another big switch that comes with this is conference realignment, getting rid of the conferences and going to 5-6 team divisions across the league. And I like this because if it's done right, Manny, we finally might have a real rivalry with this club if Chicago's in the same division and playing them twice a year.
I know. I think out of all the sports in Minnesota, by the way, because I think Chicago doesn't quite have a rivalry if we go this. I love the idea of conference realignment. I think it's going to be good storytelling. I think it's going to have some intensity about games, particularly if the conference winners get playoff bids, which I'm guessing something like that would happen. So your beginning of the year and your end of the year kind of drama really ramps up in terms of just that local kind of rivalries. I think. Again, we do playoffs really well, so I don't know how this all plays out in terms of exactly, but this is where I'm very confident in the league and all of us who kind of think about playoffs. I just love playoffs. When we're about to talk about us in this playoff run, it is by far one of the strengths of this country that we present and do well in playoffs for other leagues, and MLS does a really good job of playoffs. So it moving to the spring, I think, will be really good. This conference realignment, I think, will lead to potentially a single table as well, which some people really like. So that means we're kind of playing more Eastern teams as opposed to all these Western teams, which gets me excited too, because it just means more cities kind of being exposed to Minnesota and vice versa. So,
and it means less 9:30 starts for Minnesota teams. So I'm okay with that.
Oh, you guys are checking all the boxes. I'm like having PTSD right now of all the Minnesota fans in my Twitter mentions. I mean, sorry, X the everything app mentions, because it was like start times of games. It was we're getting screwed on the divisions that you're putting out there. Is Chicago, and this is me coming in from just, trying to better learn. Is Chicago the team where you, as Minnesota sports fans, where you think this is where the rivalry can be built? Is that's the market for you? It's Chicago.
Andrew, we're so desperate; it would be anybody, but we have to be honest that we'll take. If you think about it, does Chicago have a rival?
They kind of lost it when Cincinnati came into the league.
Yeah,
it used to be
not really.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, way back in the day, right? It was the Revs, and that was completely based on playoff meetings, right? That wasn't
Right.
It wasn't a proximity thing, but also the league was like 10 teams, and they were spread out, so proximity was hard.
Yeah. So long story short, we don't have it in any league, and we clamor for it, and so this is the first opportunity we see where now we have a team that's close by, 6-hour drive. We just have to get them to hate us, which is always hard in Minnesota.
Yeah, that's a difficult proposition for you Minnesotans.
It really is.
Very difficult.
I'll put it up to our fan base.
I tell you to stop holding doors for people, saying thank you, and you're welcoming people into your homes. But it's not in your nature. It's unfortunately not in your nature. So let me get this. What's the ranking for you? Like, give me 3 teams that could be true rivals for Minnesota. Like, if you were dream casting here, we've got Chicago number 1. Does Kansas City get into that?
No, I think number 2 is Milwaukee.
Okay, well, listen, I know we got a Panther in the chat here, but
yeah, but I'm just saying, like, there is some history in this Division II era of Minnesota soccer, Milwaukee. The problem is that, well, Jonathan, I'll let you answer. Is there a city you hate around here?
Or could hate? How about that? More could hate. Hate could bubble up inside of you.
Yeah,
a city or a team, or
yeah, either or.
I think team in the league right now. I mean, you saw kind of it again. They already have their natural rivals in Portland, but the fans clearly don't like Seattle for obvious reasons. The long-standing history between those clubs dating back to pre-MLS days. But again, they've already got their rivals, so it's hard to say Seattle. But I mean, you look at kind of where the fans tend to get more juice and the players get more juiced. Portland, I brought that one up. Those games between Minnesota and Portland over the past couple of years have been intense, very physical matches. Colorado, there's been some nasty scraps in those games. So there are a couple teams that have played out and games that have played out over the past couple of years where you could see a rivalry brewing. But
what happens here, Andrew, is the same. Everybody that we hate, like even the Packers in football, we hate them the worst, but they hate the Bears more than us. So it's not a rivalry. So the reality is we're just, again, I don't know how we got to Minnesota here. We should talk about how cool the conference realignment will be, but
I'll get there.
It does give us an opportunity to maybe have a real rivalry, which gets
I think just having the geographic, having a rival close by where your fans can travel to that game easily enough.
Where you know you're getting 2 games a year. And here's the thing I would say, if we want to take it back to sort of that macro level of what this could mean. And I want to just establish this. It still is. It's not like, hey, this is official. It is reporting by Paul and Tom over at The Athletic. So we'll just throw that out there and go read their stuff on this. It's been very good. I've been saying to a lot of people, remember that the divisions are important. It is critical. But there's 2 sides of this, which is that within that division structure, you are going to play every other team in the league, which I think is absolutely critical. I just think you don't want to everybody like that's the beauty of this, right? It's the beauty of other soccer leagues around the world. It's just the idea that you're going to get a shot at every other team. And yes, it's not going to be guaranteed home and away every year, but you're going to get a shot. Like you're going to get Messi. You're going to get, even a random one. You're going to go play New England. And it's like, okay, well, we don't normally get there. Maybe we have an away day or we just get to test ourselves and see against others. And then I really like the idea of, to go back to what you said, because we all just understand it as North American sports fans of like, hey, these 5 other teams, this is blood. This is out for blood. You know what I mean? Like as a Chiefs fan, I still want to upchuck about this Denver Broncos loss because I suffered as a child for many years under the hegemony of the Denver Broncos. I'm like, I want to beat them. I want to beat the Raiders. I want to beat the Chargers more than anybody else. As a Royals fan, well, I hate St. Louis the most, to be fair, but all of the division rivals are sort of, it's like it's a murder. It's like, hey, we got to hit out on you. Like we want to have you below us every single year. I think that emotional side is really important, and I do think the regional side is important. But as I'm going through and seeing all these ideas from people on X, the Everything app or whatever that they're just throwing out there, I'm like, it's hard. It's hard to give everybody the solution that is perfect for them. So I'm so curious to see where that will end up. But I think the overall math is it works perfectly in terms of the supporter shield, having a little bit of balance because everybody plays everybody in terms of, that rivalry aspect that we all know and love that needs to be fed and reinforced. And then just the overall competition. I just think at the end of the year, that schedule, you look at it and you say, okay, I can look at these results. I can look at the points in the table and I can feel like though it isn't home and away, like the Premier League or whatever, it's as close as we've probably ever gotten to truly having a somewhat fair and similar measuring stick. I think that's really important and really engaging.
Yeah, you've seen baseball go to the model where they schedule every team against every other team every single year now, instead of just playing one division from the opposite league. And so clearly baseball thought it was important. Glad that MLS, hopefully, according to the reporting, is going to go back to that way as well. So that is very important for.
Can I throw an idea out here that I've just been mulling on?
Love it.
What if the playoffs aren't like regionalized? What if it is a single table? What if I know travel would be more, but what if it would be possible for Seattle and Minnesota to meet in MLS Cup? What if it was possible for for Miami and Orlando to meet in MLS Cup or Austin and Dallas? What if that was possible? Like I think we have to be open to whatever the most compelling solutions are. And I know that's the way the league office is thinking. I don't have any additional insight other than my sort of off the cuff musings here. But I think there's a really interesting future where, because conferences don't exist, you have some really compelling playoff matchups and possibilities that we maybe have never seen before.
I mean, with the national nature of this league, I think it just makes sense to get away from kind of splitting up the playoffs between conferences, between regions, just make it all regional or make it all all encompassing and you're already going to the single table in the regular season, make it just single table for the playoffs as well, and get the possibility where you have an intense division rivalry in the final. That would be incredible drama. And I'm a fan of it. We've seen the NBA do it over the past couple of years, and those playoffs are amazing. Having the best two teams end up in the finals pretty much every year is incredible, and I'm all for that idea.
I'm in. Like I said, I love playoffs. I try to tell people I'm so glad we have playoffs in this country. Again, I understand I haven't really like experienced the like insane emotional connection about living or dying whether your team stays up and promotes relegation. But I don't know if I want to, because I feel like I want my sports to be more about hope of winning a championship every year, which I think the MLS has created. And then I just love when I think about the greatest teams in all these sports, you have to be great in the regular season and playoffs to be considered a great team. And I love that. And it's hard. And it's iconic and kind of amazing if you can show that you're the best team in the regular season and playoffs. And again, I'm a fan of where this is going. And I'm really excited about soccer kind of owning May and June a little bit for the playoff story. I think I think that's going to be a great, I think it's going to open up a lot of people who have not watched and can't keep up that Minnesota United just is having this really fun playoff run this year again. And for the last 2 months, you can't quite tell when they're going to play and when they're not going to play. It's like, again, I have friends who are into soccer that probably have dipped out of following the team just because of how long of a break we've had.
Finley's is a mission-driven pet brand redefining what it means to do business with purpose. Founded in 2016 by two former special education teachers, Finley's was created to address the staggering unemployment rate among individuals with disabilities, a community too often left out of the workforce. Every purchase of Finley's products supports real, paid job opportunities and community development for people with disabilities through the company's inclusive employment initiatives. From job coaching to community engagement, Finley's is creating a future where everyone has a seat at the table and a chance to thrive. Follow Finley's on Instagram at @GetFinleys. Yeah, the breaking up of the playoffs has been difficult, obviously, the past couple of years. So getting rid of that and going with essentially a sprint format of the playoffs is going to be incredible coming up in the future. We spent rightfully so, a lot of time on this. Let's jump into the international stuff. U.S. men's national team coming off a huge 5-1 win over Uruguay, Manny. Just an impressive performance, an impressive window once again for the U.S. That makes it pretty much 2 in a row for them, and building up confidence going into the World Cup, where I think earlier this calendar year, back in the summer when we were talking about it, there was a little bit of nerves and wondering what this team is going to look like. Well, over the last 2 windows, it seems, Manny, that Mauricio Pochettino has started to get this team to gel and play really, really well together.
Holy cow. I mean, holy cow, guys. Honestly, like, I know this is hard because it's a friendly. But I can't think of a better result against a higher quality team that is known for making games hard and tight and ugly and 0-0, 1-0 kind of things. And I'm not talking about against anybody. I'm talking against Brazil, Argentina, and France, and Spain. And maybe not our B team even out there. I have thoughts on it, but it truly was an insane result. I am going to state how amazing last night was. The whole 2 games was so fun for me because ironically, I actually thought we played better soccer, like in terms of moving the ball against Paraguay. So it was a really enjoyable weekend. And, it's so fun. We had Pochettino here when they played in the Gold Cup, and I got to spend a lot of time with him. And, he is such a nice guy, and he has a belief and kind of this just calmness about what he's trying to do. And it's kind of cool to have a weekend now where a lot of people who were really down on him have to maybe acknowledge the pain of the summer has led to, this team looking really deep and really good right now.
Andrew?
International game is a yo-yo, man. Right? And it's a yo-yo because you only got so many throws. If you toss that thing down and it doesn't come right back up into your hand, you start to panic. And I'm so happy and relieved to be watching performances like this from the national team, and not just performances, but like I'm pretty sure I was on the pod with you guys this summer, and I was like, "Yo, where's the vibes? Like, where's the fight? Where's the togetherness? Like, this country, soccer fans here, like, there is a pretty clear recipe behind what we'll get behind, and that's result not agnostic, but not as reliant." Like, we could have performances that aren't perfect soccer-wise, but if you're trying to punch somebody in the face, like, Americans can get behind that. And I thought the scrap against Paraguay was huge. And I just thought that carried over. And I loved what Pochettino said afterwards, and basically jumped off his press conference where he was like, don't talk about the guys that aren't here.
Yeah.
And the guys that aren't here are the biggest players right now. Talk about the guys that are here that just laid this butt kicking on a big-time opponent at a Coma Bowl, the type of opponent you've got to beat in the World Cup, one, to get out of the group, but more importantly for the U.S. to make a run. And, like, that's what this country, that's what this team, that's what we as fans need. We need the summer of 2026 to be this sort of, like, this fountainhead where it's just rising and rising and rising, and momentum is building, and we're being inspired by our players, our coach, our team, and the way that they approach this tournament in every single moment. I thought that's what we got, and that's what encourages me. I love that we now seemingly have depth. I love that Pochettino is basically coming out and saying, hey, look, it's competition, man. Like, if you don't like it, you got to perform. Like, I'll put the guys on the field that I think can perform, and so many are, that now that's not just like an idle threat, right? It's a reality. He's not threatening anybody. It's just like, hey, there's options for me. Like, I can win with a lot of people. And I think that is extremely, extremely important as we build up to next summer, especially because we didn't have qualifying to sort of sharpen our point of our spear.
Yeah.
I mean, let's go, man. Like,
yeah,
let's go. That's just what it feels like. It felt like before it was like, I don't know if I can do this. Like, I think I'm emotionally stunted and blunted by some of these performances. Now I'm just ready to charge through the drywall in front of me, like, let's go.
I'm in. I'm with you. Yeah.
So let me ask you guys, how do you guys see this playing out? You guys, we've talked about the fact that there was a group of players that weren't there, and generally, as Mauricio Pochettino said, don't talk about those guys because they're not here. Talk about the guys that were here, and they played exceptionally well. And I know there's a lot of noise from a lot of the U.S. men's national team fan base about a lot of those guys being MLS players, but they showed out, they balled out, and performed in some of the biggest stages against some of the better teams in this hemisphere, and really played well, and really gave Pochettino a lot of questions going into the World Cup in a couple months' time about what kind of roster he's going to put together. How do you see this playing out? Who kind of stepped up for you, Manny? I'll start with you.
Well, it's interesting. I mean, I would say first and foremost, Pochettino stepped up partly, and again, I say this because it's true. By the way, I'm trying to give you guys the balance of building a culture and mentality, and then also finding a system that either works or is a placebo to works, are massively important soccer. And there are always tension points where you're going to be pushing that the system is more important or the culture is more important. And it'll never go away, by the way. And again, I love it. I love it so much because they're both so important, and they both have to be integrated in the right time and place. And again, I hope we peak again at the World Cup. But the reality is, and I love talking about MNUFC too, because we essentially were one of the first teams to start playing this 3-4-2-1. Ironically, we play it deeper. Pochettino pushes his guys to play it higher in more of like an pressing way. But it still allows these two attacking midfielders, because we don't really have one superstar. And again, I think 4 years ago we talked about maybe Pulisic or McKennie would be. They're just not. And so I feel like the evolution of this summer was also about assessing individual players, but it's basically kind of allowed Coach Pochettino to see our system being that we need to find a system that brings out high-quality stars. Don't get me wrong. I think we have a lot of stars. I don't think we have a lot of superstars. And the irony is, for me, it's very similar to Minnesota United in that, we are not the superstar team of this league. We've got a lot of good players, and we've got a coaching staff that has to build a system that can compete. And I just love it. I love the fact that he's got this box midfield now. I'm a huge fan of Tanner Tessman. I play a game with my friends about buying soccer players. I bought Tessman and Freeman last year, so I bought very low. And I love that he's got that box midfield, and it reminds me, and we'll go to the Minnesota United, we have a box midfield. Again, we do it a little bit deeper. I thought Haji Wright was very useful. Balogun had a very good game against Paraguay. So I'm excited that the 9 is now not being looked at as a savior, but more of a useful kind of tool to how we play. I'm excited about our wingbacks. Dest is wildly wild, and he's got more room to be wild now that we have a back 3. I can't wait to see Robinson back. I can't wait to see where that goes. Roldan is Roldan, one of my favorite players of all time. Shows why being a soccer player in this system is great because he's just smart. It's just there's so much about the combination. And by the way, we might not have the system by the World Cup. That's the beauty of soccer.
Mm-hmm.
But I've just loved how right now there's this model of this system and the kind of players we have is really good. I do have a hot take, but I've talked too much. I'll let Andrew talk a little bit.
I'll just give you a quick take because I need that hot take ASAP. What I would say about sort of that balance that you mentioned, Jonathan, between these players like Christian and Weston, et cetera, and this group, I think now the onus goes to Christian and Weston. And it's not just onus. I think it's now a privilege for them to not be the ones that have that enormous weight of responsibility solely on their shoulders. I think that's a good thing for everybody, that it's spread out a little bit and they can have moments where they can be that special player that they are. Look, Christian can do things that nobody else in this group can do. Pochettino's job is to give him as many opportunities to do that as possible while fitting into that overall system so that everyone can be in positions to do things like Alex Freeman did last night. And so I think actually this is going to be a strength for the U.S., the fact that this is happening. There is no way those guys are not going to be, there next summer. There's no way, in my opinion, that they won't be, at least in Christian's case, for sure, a starter. But now the overall organism that they fit into is so much stronger and so much less exclusively reliant on them to make that magic moment. And I think by taking that exclusive reliance off of them, it increases the possibility that they produce those magic moments. And that's the beauty here. This is where we needed to get to as a group. And I emphasize the word group in that. There was too much talk about individual players, and I think that talk is going to start to be tamped down a little bit, and that gives everybody an opportunity to be at their best and to be a hero. And for the U.S. to make a run, it cannot be the Christian Pulisic show. It needs to be the U.S. as an organism, as we've seen with the best U.S. teams in the past that made runs, finding a way together to fight and claw and then produce those moments of magic within that to make a deep run. I mean, I'm hugely encouraged and I'm really excited. And I just think the message to those big guys is like, hey, when you come back, and you'll be back, you're walking into a different group than you were in before, and you should be more relaxed and you should be feeling less pressure to be a savior and feel like you can go out and express yourselves. And I think that's when the best players and all players tend to shine.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, I love how you say it. I think I'm going to build into my hot take now, but I'm going to go on top of what you just said. And based on the fact that the reality is I still think Canada has the best 11 versus us in CONCACAF right now. I think they have the best player in CONCACAF, okay? But I feel like not only can I say I think we have by far the most depth between Canada and Mexico, I think for the first time in a long time, we're embracing that as a positive, as opposed to MLS guys, or these guys playing the smaller teams in Europe somewhere, or they can't quite play on the big 5 teams in Europe. It's just now like, holy cow, we wake up, we said, look at all these guys we have all over the world playing soccer. Look at all these good players in MLS we have. Look at all these good players in Europe we have. It's a mentality shift where I think we were hoping for that 5-star superstar player somewhere playing for, Liverpool or Man City, to now embracing that we have by far more depth than, let's just say, Canada and Mexico. Now we embrace that. My hot take actually is, and it's happening subconsciously and consciously, it's the same thing about the powerfulness of MLS, guys. 30 teams. Do you know how many leagues around the world can only go about 4 deep? I mean, big-time teams all over the world, or leagues, can only go 4 deep in terms of how good they are. And I think we can embrace that. We're building franchises and clubs that want to compete every year to win championship because the 30 can actually do that. That's power. And then I see that power in terms of, yeah, there's not as many Americans, but the Americans actually playing in MLS now. Pochettino's like, I got to look at those guys. If they are contributing and dominating a league like MLS, I think he's kind of flipping the script on some of the kind of quote unquote Euro snobs that have looked at both players playing in this country and playing, and he's really showing them that the level of MLS and the level of American soccer players, ironically, because there's less in MLS now, is actually bigger than it's ever been. So for me, it's super cool. My big hot take, though, is the embracing of the depth of how powerful the MLS is as a league is why outside of the big five in Europe is really debatable about where they stand now, because you got 30 teams, and I still say the same thing for the US. I wake up, I look at the struggles of Brazil and putting together a good 11, and I see how we have like an A, a B, and a C team that we can compete now, and I get really excited about where soccer is going in this country, and I get excited about MLS, because the only thing I get depressed about is there's 3 countries right now, Spain, France, and Argentina, where I'm like, we'll never catch them. They're just so good at like they're the only countries right now where I'm like, how do we get even close? Because whatever we do, they just go like another step above. But I do think underneath that belly, we should get excited about competing against any team in the world outside of that kind of. I mean, Brazil should be in there. They're in a weird cycle, but outside of that kind of those teams. So my answer is I'm excited. It was a great weekend for MLS, and it was a great weekend for US Soccer.
Oh, by the way, before we jump in, I have a dentist appointment. I hate to be that guy.
No.
That I got to leave in like 7 or 8 minutes. I'm just going to read you off Canada's lineup from last night against Venezuela. Maxime Crepeau, MLS. Richie Larea, MLS. Derek Cornelius, MLS. Alistair Jones, MLS. Vucinovic, no. But Tejan Buchanan, MLS. Ismail Kone, MLS. Eustachio, okay, no. Jaden Nelson, MLS. Jonathan David, no. Tony O'Shea, MLS.
Well, you said from MLS. O'Shea and Buchanan are playing overseas now.
Yeah, but I'm saying had MLS played a role in their development.
Oh yeah, I got you.
Right?
Oh yeah.
Right, yeah. And that's to your point about 30 teams. I mean, the Canada's rise has coincided with more Canadian players getting professional opportunity and development in MLS, and many of them making big time jumps overseas. Yeah, I completely agree with you that it's not just that. I think it's also CONCACAF overall. Yep. Yeah, we've got to embrace our strengths, just like we're talking about the national team in terms of depth and competition.
Yeah. And there's a similarness there where it's funny here we talk about, we love Messi. I personally like it's insane to think about him in our league as the greatest player of all time and still actually producing in a way that blows my mind. But I still think I'd rather have the league tell those stories, but also tell the depth story of the league. Because again, we're in the thick of it, and we're going to talk quickly. I'll let Jonathan segue to San Diego's so we get your thoughts on that. But we're in the thick of the playoffs. Minnesota United. We have fans in the championship right now, and again, that to me is the glory of MLS in a nutshell.
Absolutely. Let's get your thoughts on this, Andrew, before you have to bump out here. Minnesota, San Diego, Western Conference semifinals, late Monday night. After everything that you just saw a couple weeks ago in person at Allianz Field in that wild, ridiculous, incredible Game 3, what are your expectations for this one coming up on Monday night?
Well, I mean, first of all, Minnesota United's like the Undertaker. You know, like the moment you think they're dead, you hear the bells, and it's like, oh God, he's alive, he's rising back up. Like I was on the sideline watching Eric Ramsey in that match, and especially after the Rosales red card, and I was like, well, you know, like, damn, I think this is over. And there just was the moment Pereira hit that free kick, it just felt like there was this huge life breathed into the team where they were just like, yeah, we can do this. And I know that it's not always like open play beauty right now for Minnesota United, but there's a lot of different tools in a toolbox. And some people Minnesota sees a screw and they're pulling the hammer. Minnesota sees fill in the blank, they're pulling the hammer. Like, and that hammer is useful. And by the way, that hammer was very useful against San Diego pretty darn recently. So I think they have every opportunity to go there and shock the number 1 seed. And I especially think that because San Diego is this beautiful, free-flowing sort of, entity where they want the ball, they want to draw you in with the ball, and then they want to use the space behind you. I don't think Minnesota's going to give them that space. I don't think there's a chance in the world that Eric Ramsey exposes his group in that way. I think this is a really interesting game in the terms of like styles make fights. And it's like two very opposing styles where each side probably feels like they have the antidote to the other. And now it's just a matter of whose game plan is going to be better and who's going to execute better. I still do have questions about Kelvin Yeboah's overall health and sort of sharpness. I think that's a question, but I don't have any question about the way that Minnesota sort of maximizes what many other teams think of as minimal moments. Like it's just incredible, the preparation and sort of the execution that goes into not just set pieces, but like that little split second where it's like, are we going or are we not going? And Minnesota seems to understand best when you go, you go. And when you don't, like, let's be smart about it and not go. So I'm watching very closely this game, Joaquin Pereira. I'm watching Robin Ludd. I love watching Joaquin. I just think he needs to release the ball a little quicker. I think if he releases the ball a little quicker, it gives Minnesota more opportunities to have those sort of, vertical moments to get into the channels behind and put teams under pressure and not just create chances, but create set pieces, which I think is hugely important, obviously. So I'm fascinated by this matchup. I'm really interested to see how you guys defend Anders Dreyer. Like when I'm watching Dreyer on the field, and it's particularly tight between him and Tverskov, who I think is just a spectacular player. He wants to get in behind all the time. Anytime Jeppe gets the ball and his head is up in any way, Dreyer is pointing, he's running, he wants to be in behind. So that's going to be a question mark, I think, in terms of how you stay alert for those moments, how you track him, and how you prevent the space that he's going to run into. And then for Minnesota, I'm very curious to see who replaces Rosales at outside back and how that decision is made. And then, between that center back, is it going to be Dugan again, or are they going to go and switch it back up to Romero? I'm fascinated by the stylistic clash here and also by the previous matchup. And I am extremely excited to both be in Vancouver for Vancouver, LA, which no offense, I think is the marquee conference semifinal by far. 53,000 plus on Saturday night at BC Place. I mean, it's Muller, Sun, two incredible teams that have history in the last 2 years in the playoffs and CCC. I get to do that game. Then I get to jump on a plane and go to San Diego and do San Diego, Minnesota. I've been living in the West this playoffs, boys, and it's been spectacular. I can't recommend it enough.
One final question.
You said 53,000 they've sold out?
It is. Yeah. It is a sold out game at BC Place.
What a great like from a attendance standpoint, that's unbelievable.
Yeah.
Amazing.
One final question for you, Andrew. Yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead, Jonathan. What?
I was going to say one final question for Andrew before he's got to take off. When you look at San Diego, what are the lessons you take out of their series against Portland, where they were forced to go to game 3? And I'm going to take away, do not press them all over the field like Portland did.
Yeah, I don't think that's going to happen. I'm going to go ahead and...
I don't think man marking across the field...
Pretty solid limb that I'm climbing out on that Eric Ramsey will not do that. I think that the key with San Diego is to recognize the moments when they want to pull you in, and to recognize when you've started to creep up and expose the space in behind you. Like they have a way of just sort of... It's tantalizing, right? You start to think that you can win balls that you can't, and they start to play balls that other teams simply don't. And so I think you got to be really smart about what your pressing triggers are. And it's not to be conservative. It's just to be efficient with those. You don't want to be out there sort of like getting drawn in even 5 yards because they find a way to get in that space. And then the other one I would say is that when they do get in behind you and when they do start running downhill, because it will happen, you've got to find a way to be really, really organized in terms of how you're figuring out what that sort of like emergency defending organization is. I think Minnesota have a really good setup and great communicators on the back line. But like you saw against Portland in that deciding game, when they get downhill against you, they have an understanding of like how to fill space and what the right balls in the right moments are. And if you aren't really organized, they have a way of tearing you open. So make sure you do that. But I do think this team can be got. I do think defensively, because of the way that they play, because of the age of their back line, which is extremely young, talented, but young, I do think you can get after this team. And you're also playing against their second string goalkeeper. So I think you have to choose your moments and go, and then be really efficient, as Minnesota has all year, in terms of taking advantage on the break, but also getting 4 or 5 chances via set pieces. And I think if Minnesota gets an early goal, that changes this game completely. So if you can get it, but don't expose yourself trying to do it.
This should be a really fun series. I'm looking forward to it. Looking forward to all of the semifinal action coming up this weekend. Andrew, appreciate you stopping by the podcast and chatting through everything with us.
Yeah, it's always a joy, guys.
Good to have you on, for sure.
I'm a Sonicare twice flossing a day guy. I feel super confident. We're going to the dentist. We're not going to have any issues. No cavities, no nothing. I'll see you boys on Monday.
All right, cheers.
We'll see you then.
Safe travels.
Thank you.
Manny, let's continue the conversation about this this semifinal coming up against San Diego on Monday. We'll be there for the radio broadcast live from Snapdragon Stadium. Looking forward to that 9 p.m. kickoff. So it's a little bit late, but take your coffee, get your energy drinks, take your naps. We'll be ready to go for a big one. When you look at this series between these two teams this season, San Diego took the game from Minnesota in Minnesota. Minnesota returned the favor in San Diego back in September. These two teams have very differing styles. What are your takeaways and I guess your preview of this match coming up on Monday night?
Yeah, I mean, Andrew had some good moments of commentary in there about both individual player assessment as well as some tactics. My first thing is San Diego is very good. They've had a great year. They've had a historic kind of record-breaking franchise expansion team year, and it's because they're a very good soccer team. They've got excellent attacking players that can really hurt you. They've got a center midfield that can dominate and be physical and also move the ball. And they've got a back line that has grown up quickly. And Andrew mentioned is young, but they've kind of relied on those veterans to help them through some maybe weaker points of their team. So this is a really good team. You have to give a lot of credit to their coaching staff, to their front office staff for the roster build. It's got a lot of mixture of younger and older players, and they have an identity, which is hard to do in year one. I would go back to it's the margins are so thin for both teams because the styles are different, and so one or the other style will win out. If I'm going back to our margins, we've somehow have to kind of get rid of how we played against LA last year, which was a very good team, and make sure that we don't play that way, meaning that we play both individually and collectively to our strengths. I do think that does start with Kelvin having a big game if he starts. Hopefully the break will help him train and get a little bit fitter, a little bit sharper, mostly a little hungrier to kind of really embrace the role and the system that Eric puts him in. I agree with Andrew. I think Joaquin has to be better at keeping the ball in key moments. Ultimately, the way we kind of set up is really, keeping space tight in certain parts of the field defensively. But that means we have triggers to go forward and keep the ball when we need to keep it, and to remind Seattle that we can go forward. It means we have good guys who are good soccer players making good decisions on the field. And ultimately, like I always tell people, the game is so much faster than people realize in the field. So it's not easy just to keep the ball, but it's super important that Joaquin and Lode remind San Diego that they are high quality players that will hurt them if they send too many numbers forward, and allow us to kind of re-attack or redecide how we want to create the tempo to go forward and either create a chance or keep the ball and make them really work defensively. So massively important that Joaquin ups his level from what he's been the last 4 or 5 weeks in terms of his individual performance. The set piece goal is amazing, but I just mean 90 minutes of soccer is what we need out of him and Lode to win this game. I think Anthony goes in for Joseph. That's just my guess. That's a no-brainer. It might have been a debatable whether Anthony should start anyways. And I think Anthony will have a big game, both going forward, but also dealing with Dreyer. That's kind of the space that he likes to kind of sneak into in a game. If he doesn't find that space, he will drift into the middle. So that's where he scored the goal against us half field. Yeah. So long story short, amazing matchup, amazing game. It'll be one of the best environments Minnesota United's ever played in and against. They've sold out, new fan base, but hungry to get wins as a championship. So really looking forward to it.
Based on previous conversations we've had in this episode alone about just the breaking up of the playoffs, kind of ruining the momentum of things. This next point for me might sound a little ridiculous, and I'm totally okay with that. And I just kind of want to get your thoughts on it. I think the 2-week break coming off of that incredible, wild back and forth game 3 is going to be more important than maybe a lot of people realize, because you had 2 weeks to come down from that, just kind of the emotions of all that match we've seen in previous sports. And I'm just kind of thinking back to Minnesota sports alone, thinking back to the Minneapolis Miracle in the playoffs. Minnesota, the Vikings, they get the huge win over the Saints on a ridiculous pass and catch, Case Keenum to Stephon Diggs, that wins them the game in the final seconds of the match. A walk-off winner. They go to next week in the NFC conference final, and they get run out of the building by Philadelphia. And there was a lot of talk about how those emotions, the fact that they had to kind of flip the switch immediately. They didn't have enough time to just kind of let that result in that game sink in. And it wore on them throughout that game in Philadelphia. I think having this couple weeks off, and where some of these players went off to play the international, is probably better for this team than having to just kind of go into the next round with the weight of that game and kind of the energy and the emotion that they expelled in that game hanging over them. I think having that time off will gave them some time to kind of separate from the match and now focus completely on the San Diego match.
Yeah, I would say 100% agree. Like my take on the chunkiness of the international break has nothing to do with the players or the competition on the technical side. It has to do with the fandom of building excitement. And again, I think it's going to be hard to build excitement in our market based on our media is doing a lot of things, and they have to re-engage fan bases to say, hey, don't forget about Minnesota United are still in the playoffs. But when it comes down to the real competition, I think you're 100% right. I would say even more so, I love that the game's Monday because, guys finished up all their games last night.
Mm-hmm.
Eric now has 4 days to both kind of get the group together, train together, build some tactics and some kind of ideation of those pressing triggers or margins that we talked about so thin. I think we've got the nicest preparation period out of almost any team that had a lot of guys go away. Obviously, San Diego's in the same boat, but I think they're in a little bit more of a rhythm where we still need to work on our group getting sharper and building into kind of post-Seattle series, how Kelvin kind of didn't build into the end. So if we're planning on starting Kelvin, these next 4 or 5 days with the starters is really important, actually. It's really important that they feel like they're prepared and organized going into Monday.
That's kind of Kelvin's the next point I want to talk about, because that's obviously the big question hanging over this squad going into this next round, because it's no longer a series. It's one and you're done. And you're going to need that presence up top, which Kelvin just, because of the injuries and coming back in short order, just hasn't been able to provide. How does Eric Ramsey get the most out of him to be able to open things up in transition for this squad that we've seen him be key towards, or we've seen that position be key towards in the system throughout the season? How does he get the most out of him in this one game playoff against San Diego on Monday night?
It's interesting. Like at the end of the day, we don't know if he's starting them or not. Ultimately,
because again, this is with the next round now that doesn't go straight to penalties. There's 30 minutes of extra time, so you have to weigh that in mind. And I know that was a big weight for the club or for the coaching staff, is when you start Yeboah, you're not going to get him for the full match in that game 3, which means you're taking him out for the potential of penalties, and he's easily the best penalty kick taker on this team. So you went into penalties without the best kick taker on the team, but you had to start him. There's no way you couldn't start your DP number 9 in a do or die game 3.
Yeah, and I thought there was some quality in terms of we've talked about Kelvin's sharpness wasn't great, but he also provided a little bit of what number 9 does, some chaos. He drew the foul for our opening goal to get back in the game. Obviously, the disastrous start, I think we cannot have happen. And we can look at it and say, Kelvin and that group, you guys got to make sure that first goal, particularly how we got a little bit soft in terms of shifting over to allow that penetrating pass. That was a beautiful goal by Rusnak, but ultimately, Kelvin's in with that group now where I've got to start from the beginning, both defensive and offensively, with my both work rate and sharpness. And I think that, like I said, the break, I think, can allow you to breathe and for him to build some confidence, to build some fitness, and to kind of realign how he fits in with the squad, which hasn't felt, because of injuries normal for a long time. So for me, I'm anticipating that he would start because we getting off to a good start is really important in San Diego. We can't kind of have the same chaos that the Galaxy game had, where we were just too big of a hole to climb out of too quickly. Mm-hmm. I think it's really important that we start sharp and we start good and organized defensively, along with getting forward and hurting San Diego early is important, just because we don't want them to think they can just throw tons of numbers forward and we're defending for 90 minutes. So ultimately, like a lot of players, every player individually who ends up starting, they're so important. But the Calvin one's interesting because he's got the potential to be really impactful. He's got the potential to line up where he's fit now, physically hungry. The team is kind of now settled into this system that we believe gives us a good chance to win against San Diego, which hopefully will give the guys a lot of confidence going into the game.
How important is the home field aspect of this? Because you look at the records this season for Minnesota away from home, for San Diego at home. Minnesota second in the conference away from home with 30 points gathered from away games. San Diego, when they're at home, they haven't been great, to be honest with you. I mean, they've won their last 2 home matches, which were both the playoff games against Portland. But beyond that, for the regular season, they're 9th in the West in home form. So getting 26 points from 17 home games. They haven't been great at Snapdragon Stadium. We saw the Loons get a big 3-1 result there in September, but that came with a monster performance from Dane St. Clair and some incredible goals on that one late in that game as well. And so San Diego's home performance is there to be had, and Minnesota, we know, have been really good on the road. How much will that play into this match on Monday?
I mean, it's hard to say. I would always take the home. I mean, I just look at what our fans did for us in Game 3 of Seattle.
Yeah.
San Diego is going to have a huge crowd and huge support to kind of push them through any adversity that they're going through in the game. So it's just another reality that it's more about how Minnesota embraces the adversity of having to play away and find a way to win a game away on the road. And it's a one and done. So at the end of the day, I would always take the home game personally because I know our fans and they're awesome and they're going to push our guys. But to your point, the newness of San Diego, you're not sure. You're not sure how their fans react to the adversity. You're not sure how that back line. We said that young back line might be a spot where we could find some weakness in them. So ultimately, I would say I'd always take the home field. But it's a nice reminder that we are playing a new team still that hasn't gone through everything ever. Everything they're doing is for the first time.
Yeah, for sure. That's also a big point, is that it's a team that's never been to the playoffs before. They're experiencing all of this for the first time. They've also had some injury and sickness worries throughout the international break. Anders Dreyer away on international duty, but missed a game because of sickness. Chucky Lozano.
Yesterday, they didn't travel him. It was a wild game, by the way. I mentioned the Scotland. It was unbelievable. Go watch those highlights, by the way. And
those goals. 3 of those goals in that game were simply incredible from Scotland.
But it looked like it was just like either like the stomach flu that was going on throughout the whole team. And so they had a couple of guys that they said, you know what, this is a better one. We just don't even travel to Scotland, stay in Denmark. My guess is he's traveling back to San Diego today and will be available. So,
and then Chucky Lozano was missed some time with Mexico.
That one's a bigger one. Yep.
Yeah, that one's gonna potentially have some impact, but that's a guy that they've played without for the past couple of weeks.
I kind of think I don't even know if he would have started, if I'm being honest. My gut says he wouldn't have. He would have been kind of a super sub. But again, the way these
he didn't start the game 3.
What's that?
He didn't start the game 3, if I remember.
No, he didn't.
So
he didn't. I think maybe in game 1 and 3. But long story short, I think that one might hurt depending on how the game goes, and they need some energy off the bench. That's where that one would be. I don't think he would be starting this game.
All right. Quick thoughts from you on the rest of the conference semifinals. We've gone a little bit long in this episode. So quick thoughts on that.
Everywhere. Sorry, fans, if we're just talking too much. My first thought is all the Western Conference teams can only host the final if NYCFC gets there, which I thought was fascinating.
So everybody in the West is cheering for NYCFC.
Everybody in the West is rooting for NYCFC right now. So
upset Philadelphia and then upset whoever comes out of Cincinnati, Miami.
Yeah, and I got to tell you, I love the semifinals, and Philly, you guys are awesome, and you're awesome. So good that it's kind of boring in a weird way that the Miami Cincinnati is the marquee semifinal, messy and really because of how Cincinnati's played. We've kind of they've kind of been under the radar in terms of dealing with their own adversity and kind of sneakily have been very consistent all year in a really tough Eastern Conference. So I think that's going to be a great game. I'm probably going to pick Cincinnati, actually.
Oh, I like it.
You pick the home team. Yeah.
That makes sense. That's going to be a tough environment for Miami to go into.
Yeah.
It's going to be an incredible atmosphere. Messi's traveled all over the world over the past couple of weeks, so he's got that wearing on him. Plus,
that was wild. He played a game in Angola. They paid the Argentine Federation $12 million for that game. So with Messi,
he scored his first goal on the
I think
African
Philly's
continent.
Too much at home. I think Philly's gonna.
Well, and Martinez going down with the knee injury is going to be a huge loss for NYCFC. That was, I mean, that's what we all fear about these international games, especially during the playoffs, is that you lose a key player, and NYCFC is going to feel the loss of Martinez. That's going to be a big loss. Vancouver, LAFC, as you heard, Andrew Wiebe is going to be on the sidelines for that one. That one's going to be an unbelievable atmosphere. Yeah. They'll have a dome, so they're not going to have the Canadian Championship, the Canadian Premier League final of the snow all over the place. So it'll be safe weather there, but that one's going to set up for an incredible matchup in that one.
Yeah, it's going to be awesome. I mean, I'm sneakily taking Vancouver.
Oh, I like it.
Although I got to be honest, I was surprised he left Berhalter in for 90 minutes last night. I thought that was a little bit harsh.
He's playing well. I mean,
he was playing well.
First goal for the U.S.
He got one of your biggest club games ever. He's got to recover for now. So it's a lot of he logged a lot of minutes. He played higher up the field with Gio too in that last 10, 15 minutes. So, I mean, it's a great matchup. I would say Vancouver feels like they have the advantage. It's a little bit like Cincinnati. Like it's hard to pick the two, so I'm going to go with home field.
Yeah, I think I'm with you. I think I'm going home field on that one for Vancouver upsetting or getting the win over LAFC.
But it might be an upset. I bet if you looked at the Vegas odds, I bet you're right.
I think it's an upset considering how LAFC have played down the stretch of the season.
Because of Bouanga and Son, I bet they'll have the favorites.
That'll be interesting to see how that duo plays on turf. Because obviously that changes things. The way the ball bounces on turf will change things. And I'm interested to see how those two and that counter-attacking system that they play plays on turf. In the East, I think I'm with you. I'm picking Cincinnati and probably Philadelphia. The boring pick in that one, but that's just too big of a loss for me for Martinez and NYCFC battling against it.
All right, we got Messi being upset. That's huge. I mean, again, he probably will prove us wrong because he does that his whole career. But,
right. I think there was lessons learned from the playoffs last year, but I think they expelled them all in that first round series. I don't know how much that helps them going forward because Cincinnati's a really tough team, and that's going to be a very interesting matchup coming up this weekend. Back at home, we've got a fan flight for the game. So visit MNUFC.com/playoffs for details on the discounted trip to catch the game in San Diego. Be one of the 35,000 inside Snapdragon Stadium cheering for Minnesota. Need as big of a crowd as possible. Looking forward to seeing all the Loons fans out there. If you're sticking around the cities, join us at our official watch party at Brits. Doors open at 7 p.m. on Monday night for kickoff at 9 p.m. Central Time. 8:30 p.m. pre-match show with Dan Terra and myself on the radio side on Score North, on the Score North mobile app and 1500 ESPN and 1500ESPN.com. We will, the game will be available to all Apple TV subscribers, not behind the MLS Season Pass paywall. So plenty of ways to watch and listen to the game coming up next Monday. And I'm looking forward to this, Manny. Western Conference semifinals. You've got the bad blood, the bad taste from last year's semifinals still in the mouth a little bit, trying to expel those demons out in California again. Can the Loons do it? I'm looking forward to seeing.
By the way, I'm telling you, if you choose to go, there's tickets still left. You fly out Monday morning. It's a super cool group going on that flight. I know we've got a lot of cool front office people going. I know we've got a lot of awesome fans. Some fans are going on earlier, so it's not like just those fans in the flight, and then you just fly back the next day. Beautiful stadium environment. I would encourage anybody that can go. You should definitely invest. Cheap flight. You'll love it. Fun time.
Yeah. Will be an awesome experience, and hopefully, and not just hopefully, we will come back with the win and move on to the Western Conference Finals. Manny, appreciate you stopping by today. Looking forward to chatting with you on Monday night on the radio side. Looking forward to this game. This is a massive one. Loons looking to go a little bit further than they did last year in the playoffs. Loons fans, appreciate you stopping by, and thanks again to the production staff. Grace Dearson, Kyle Hayward, Evan Etler for putting this on every week. We'll talk to you next week.
Thanks, guys.